Welcome to the first of our mental health series for 2021. The current situation has taken its toll on lots of us, having to restrict our travel, our shopping, our socialising, and much, much more. And I'm delighted to introduce Shanni to hear her expert ideas on the trials facing teenagers in the age of COVID-19 and how we can help them. Shanni's a parenting trainer and lecturer. She holds a diploma in the foundations of counselling, and she spent many years working with children and parents as a paediatric nurse, an educator and mentor for Aish, and the educational director of a family-centered program in Seed, addressing the Jewish community's educational, social, and spiritual needs. She developed and taught parenting programs, and she's spoken at many Jewish educational conferences on a range of marriage, parenting, and social issues. Shanni has a master's in psychology. She trained as an innate health practitioner and now works in several Jewish primary and secondary schools, facilitating social and emotional learning sessions, as well as working with individual pupils to help develop emotional well-being and social confidence. She runs inset days for teachers and senior management and works in a consulting capacity for the teachers, senior leadership, and Senkos. Shanni's now embarked on a doctorate in counselling psychology, focusing on cultivating resilience in teenagers and its impact as a protective factor for perpetrators and victims of antisocial behaviour. And on top of all of that, she is married to Rabbi Dr. Shanni Solomon and has 6 of her own beautiful children. Not much more I can add to that, Shanni. It's lovely to see you, and I will pass over to you.
Yeah, it's never fun to hear one's sort of eulogy in for one speaks. Okay, anyway, all good. So yeah, to summarize all of that, I guess what qualifies me from being here, which I didn't say on that horrible blurb, is that. But thank you, Eva. Sorry, I shouldn't. It wasn't horrible that you said it. It's just horrible to hear one's accomplishments read out like that. But what I have been doing, my research mainly at the moment, I'm doing this doctorate at the moment, and my research is focusing really on, and I spend my time interviewing adolescents. We'll call them teenagers for now because I hate the word adolescents. I say it every 5 seconds. We'll call them teenagers. And I spend my time interviewing them about how they perceive their own resilience, especially in the context of having had negative online experiences, but how they perceive themselves, how they understand their own resilience, how they go about achieving it or not achieving it, and how they understand things. Now, I also work a lot with a lot of teenagers. Just before I came on this call, I saw two teenagers privately. So again, I'm zooming all day long. I also work in the role free at the moment and chronic fatigue service. So I spend a lot of time and I see a lot of teenagers there as well. So I spend a lot of time talking to them. Okay. And guess what? They're having a really hard time. They're having a hard time. I always say, like, I've had these braces on my teeth. I'm like, I've actually sprouted teenagehood. I'm going backward rather than forward because I spend so much time on with adolescents, with teenagers, but they're having a hard time. Not all of them. Obviously, the ones that I see are having a harder time than maybe others. But I'm also a mother of quite a few teenagers. I too many to count. I have 6 children. I don't remember where. My 20-year-old is still a teenager, I would say. But they're 9 hour, and my 11-year-old is already a teenager. So I spend a lot of time with teenagers, and I would say that, I almost feel like I would love to give this talk after we're out of lockdown, after we're finished with COVID-19, because I think we really would have to all stand up and give ourselves a massive round of applause. It would be nice if we could do that now, but we're not really there yet. We haven't gone. But the amount of effort that each and every one of us are putting into just getting through the day, just living, just being okay, just arriving places on time, even on Zoom, just kind of carrying on and living and trying our best is quite remarkable. I will say that I know it very, very well because I feel I'm privileged, but I get to hear people's intimate experiences very much firsthand. So I know, and I meet with many, 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 many people every week. So I know how hard this all is for everybody, and I know we're all going through. And kudos to us all. right? Shkoyach to everybody. But the teenagers themselves, I would say, are in probably the worst position. Okay, and why do I say that? Because adults, right? Adults have some perspective. Adults have perspective. We kind of know this isn't going to last forever. You know, this too shall pass. This is something that we'll look back on and we'll kind of, write about, and we'll have, history lessons about. We have a lot of perspective on the way life works and on history and our part in history. And children, right? Pre-teenagers have this beautiful thing called faith and trust in the adults around them. They think, I'm okay because my adults in my life know what they're doing. They have a sense of that somehow they're in charge and I don't have to worry about it because they're in charge and they know what they're doing. Now, teenagers don't have either of those things. They don't have perspective, and we all know they no longer think that you know what you're doing. They question everything and they assume in a certain way that you are messing things up. Okay, that's kind of almost their way of approaching things, or they're questioning. At least if they're not assuming that, they're questioning whether you really know what you're talking about, and whether the teachers in their life, whether the head teachers, the politicians, the people who are around them, who they see as adults, they question whether they have any clue what's going on. Now, we as adults do that too, but we have this thing called perspective. So for teenagers, they really are in a bit of a bind. They're as you say in Yiddish, nicht dahin, nicht daher. They're not here and they're not there. They're not secure as children can be, and they're not kind of, again, gifted with a sense of this will be okay, or this too shall pass. So they're struggling, okay? And they're also the ones who have to go through exams, or fears of exams, or not exams, or having canceled it, or in the stress. And then in general, adolescents are growing up, meaning are in the process of becoming, right? We're all in the process of becoming. Children are also certainly in the process of becoming. But teenagers have an acute awareness, right? It's almost like a recent onset of an awareness of becoming. And that is not a pretty sight, right? That's what we see all the time in our teenagers. It's not pretty to watch, and it's not comfortable for them to experience either. It really isn't. I see myself too big, and suddenly I want to see everybody else. If you want to turn your screens on, I would love to see you. But if not, I totally understand as well. I often go incognito. But if you do, then I just like to see people's faces. I mean, I'm sure you understand that. But if not, that's also fine. What I would love to do, because we're not such a big group, I hope, not too big, not too bad. I would love to, if we can, I want to a little bit, first of all, hear from people. I want to have a little bit of an interactive session if possible, because again, like talking at a screen all day long is not 100% my idea of fun, and I can imagine it's not totally your idea of fun either. But I'd love to hear a little bit of a sense of what people's adolescents, their teenagers, are grappling with. I have my own ideas, but I would like to hear from you if possible. So I wonder if I can I share a screen? I can. Hold on one second. Can I do
it,
this?
or do I have to make you a co-host?
I think you might. One second.
Okay,
Maybe I can. Oh, 1 minute. What did I just do there?
It's working.
It's working, but it's not what I wanted. Hold on. Where's my, hold on. Oh, sorry. Here. Okay.
We can all turn away.
Yeah. Can you all see that? Oh, no, that's okay. It's just, yeah, it's true. I do actually have a lot of, but not on there. Okay. Does this make sense? I mean, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to throw it out there. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to use the word adolescent. I'm sure you're not as insulted by the word adolescence as I am, only because I use it 100,000 times a day. But I wonder what people feel that their teenagers are grappling with, and then I wonder if we can kind of come up with. Again, I have my own ideas. It's not, but I'd like to sort of hear from you if possible. Does anybody want to unmute themselves and say, what are your teenagers grappling with?
Hi, yeah.
Hi, Jess.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'll introduce myself. I'm Jess. I have a daughter who is, well, she's actually nearly 20. But I also work in the mental health world. I work for Jamie. And so I'm also seeing what you're talking about with families that we support. And to me, what are teenagers grappling with? First of all, they're grappling with that their routine is now gone completely out the window. They have no routine anymore. Second of all, they are learning from home in this like bizarre world where their parents can't really help them because they don't understand what they're doing, and it's work that they're meant to be doing on their own. So they're dealing with that. Their mental health, for those who may have had it, or who have mental health, or may have not got mental health, suddenly it's gone through the roof. Their anxiety levels are, I mean, way high. Kids are self-harming, which we've never seen before, partly because they don't understand what's going on. And they're just in this world of what is going on, and I think it's very hard for them. And also you have got those teenagers that are meant to be doing GCSEs or A levels, and suddenly the wool's just been pulled from under them and they're not doing their exams. And you've got people like my daughter who decided to have a gap year. It wasn't the gap year that she wanted. And she's first year uni, and it's not what she dreamed of. She dreamed of what uni would be like, and it's not been that dream. She's learning online. I mean, you know, it's hard for them. So
hard. Yeah.
You know,
Great. Jess, you've done brilliantly. Look at that. Okay. Was that, did I get it right? I mean, I'm just doing it in small. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I just feel for them. And they're the missed. They're the ones that are not mentioned in the news at all. It's either about children in school or older people, but anyone that's sort of in the age of 18 to 25, forget it.
Right. So I'm going to call it adolescents and young people. Is that young adults? Because let's.
Does anybody else want to add to that? I saw a couple of other people unmuted. I don't know if anyone wants to add to. It's quite a list we have already. But...
No, go ahead, please.
Thank you for that, Jess. Elisa, are you?
Hi. In addition to those things, I've got. I happen to have one daughter that is on a gap year, and actually, I don't actually think it's actually affected her. I think it's that when I say I don't think it's affected her, I think the best thing that happened was that she was able to go on her gap year. I think had she have been here, all those things unfortunately would be affecting her a lot more. But my 17-year-old and my 14-year-old, I feel for them a lot of it is the social things that are rites of passage that we, as you say, Shanni, I completely understand. We have perspective. We think, well, if we don't go on a holiday this year, we'll go on a holiday next year. Or if we can't do something now, times will get better. But for them, they live in the here and now. And you know, even last year, you know, when things like an Israel tour were taken away from them, it looks like even this summer it's going to be the same for them, and you sort of don't even know what to say to them because you do feel for them, and they are all things that when I look back at my teenage years, I feel like it went on for years. I feel like it went on for years and years and years, but it's quite a small gap of, it's quite a small amount of time that they have all that. And it is how you deal with that and sort of explain to them that, yes, we're all in the same boat, which I think does make a big difference.
Yeah.
I think we're all in the same boat worldwide, shall we say. It's affecting everyone. It's not like it's just them or it's just them.
Yeah, they haven't been singled out.
No.
Thank you, Elisa. Is it okay?
Thank you.
If I think Yael wants to. Is that okay, Shanni?
Hi, Shanni. How are you?
Yeah, go ahead. Hi, Yael.
How are you?
Good.
I think it's also quite hard for the mid-teens. So my 16-year-old, she hasn't got the freedom of the older teens that can drive and get out somewhere, but they equally need to have their space and be sociable, particularly if their friends don't live locally. they don't go to a local school, there is no other way for them to, they can't even meet a friend for a walk, and they haven't got the independence of the car. They're too old, they need to get out, and they haven't got a space to go because they're too young to drive but too old to, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I
hope I'm writing the right thing, but meaning what I'm hearing you saying is, again, that theoretically we would say, okay, a child that age is really developing into an independent being, right? Their independence is really starting to flourish and develop, and what we're doing is almost like they haven't gained their independence yet by having a car and being able to just kind of get out and do their own things, and yet their sense of independence has really been curtailed, because of COVID.
I'm just going to add to that from, and then I'll go to Jo, because I can see she's got her hand up. It was very interesting when we did go back to Shawl for a bit. The youth directors noticed that the current year 7 and year 8 were a bit less mature than they'd experienced previously, because the end of year 6 was cut off, and the end of year 7, those very important years, I know that's slightly younger than teenagers, but they'd lost that. I mean, everybody, but it was really interesting that they could see that. Jo, do you want to unmute? Thank you, Elle, as well.
Yes. So obviously I agree with all of those things, and my 15 and 13-year-old are really struggling with the social side. And my comment is more about what we as parents are grappling with because of them, is the whole screen thing. So my kids are on screens the whole day from 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock on lessons. They've got their phones with them. Then in the evening, my son just wants, he's on the Xbox now, just wants to sit on the Xbox. And it's just a constant battle of screens. It's just not good for them. And it's just, he is communicating a bit on the Xbox, but it's not the same as, face-to-face conversation. So I think that's just a massive thing.
A child described it to me very well, and again, I'm an excellent listener. So so often that means that children really speak to me, and adolescents speak to me, and I get these beautiful gems. But what one of them said to me, a boy, he said, all the things that my parents used to tell me I had to do, now the government are telling me I'm not allowed to do, right? And all the things that my parents were like, no way. Now they're sort of turning away and saying, just do it, just do it, just do it, just whatever, just do it, And he said, how confusing, right, to live like that, where, we used to be told, go out with your friends, go with your friends, get some mates together, just go out, just go do something fun, go play ball, go get some exercise, get some fresh air, go to somebody's house, have fun. Like, not allowed to do that. Can't have mates. No, that's dangerous. That's not allowed. That's against the law. That's, that's criminal.
Yeah, get on your computer and play with them
and be quiet and do something indoors. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything else?
Karen?
I think this is a very good list, and I don't know if we're going to get through all of this, but we'll talk around it.
Karen, do you want to unmute? Shall I unmute you?
No, I'm unmuted. Hi, Shanni.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, everyone. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Karen Moss. I'm the Community Support Coordinator for Borehamwood and Elstree Synagogue. I speak to lots of parents on the phone, but also have my eldest son is almost a teenager, so I feel like I'm part of this as well. And from personal experience, I feel like there's a lot of frustration just because they're not getting out, they're not having the natural, the exercise that they were having before. For my experiences having boys, but I know that they kind of need that exercise, and I feel that all the screen time and everything adds to the frustration and the confusion all kind of mixed up together. And the other thing is there's less focus as well with the learning, which is difficult because they're on the screens, but there's, you're not able to supervise them all the time, so they could be looking at other things and getting easily distracted, which obviously if they're in school, then that's not possible. So that's hard as well, to keep them focused so that they can, reach their potential really. And just echoing what Eva said as well about for the younger teens, for the children in year 7 and 8, just really hard in terms of the transition moving into secondary school and trying to make friends and that whole social thing. And now, you know, especially for children who are a bit quieter, it's really, really hard to make those friendships as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Remind me how much time we have. I'm sorry to be rude. I don't know.
Oh, 3 hours, right? No. Should we say?
Amazingly, I actually have another meeting after this, but I told them that I not till 10 o'clock. So just tell me when.
So should we aim for 9:45? I hope that's okay with everybody. If you have to go, just
yes,
go.
Just go. Anyway, if you have to go, go. Right. That's always what my children keep saying. They're like, we've got to go. When we've got to go, we've got to go. And I said, well, always, when you've got to go, you've got to go. And that's it. End of story. Meaning that's on screen time. Okay. So how do we help them? So we've come up, you know, and again, it's never a problem. Actually, I wasn't worried about doing this because I've never had a conversation with a parent, and you will be not shocked to hear that I have them pretty much every day. And for them not to be able to say, this is what my child is grappling with, or that is what my child grappling with. It's an extremely common and universal, not only universal in our country, but a universal experience. Now, obviously, not every single child across the world is not in school, but every single child has had their life affected in a way that they didn't expect. Okay, and they didn't ask for, they did nothing wrong. And no one expected, and really every single one of us was blindsided, so we had no time to prepare for it. It's been quite an experience, right? So how do we help them? Okay, that's the point, is we can't take this away, that we know. Okay, so that's probably, I'm going to say, the first thing, okay, is that we have to accept that it's here. And that's a very, very big one. Okay, we have to accept, and we have to help them accept. And the truth is that most children have been pretty good about it. And I will actually say, you know, nobody mentioned bar mitzvahs or bat mitzvahs. That's been a pretty amazingly difficult experience. But from my experience, I don't have anybody this year. And with all my kids, it's quite amazing we didn't, but we didn't have anyone this year. And we have a bat mitzvah in November of this year. Please God, we will be long past this. But one of my experiences is how accepting the bar mitzvah boys have been. That's just been my experience of it. Like, because everybody's going through the same thing, and because they know that it's not like their parents just didn't organize themselves, or their parents couldn't be bothered, or somehow their parents didn't care. It's a universal experience. And I found that a lot of the children have been quite accepting. And part of that is because there was just nothing to do. It's kind of like one of those things, you know, when like you go to you know, when kids are very little and they want candy and they want candy and they want candy or sweets, right? And they want chocolate and like, my. And all you need to say to them is, oh, so sorry, but it's not kosher, right? And we keep kosher, you know, and they're like, oh, and then they stop yelling about it, because it's just a line that isn't going to be crossed. It's not something that we're going to do. I'm not going to suddenly say, I know we keep kosher, but for you, I'm going to actually break it. I'm going to give you this candy because you really want it. I don't do that, right? There are lines that are pretty easy for children to understand, that they're not going to be crossed, right? So it's an amazing thing, actually, how I've noticed, and I've spoken to a lot of bar mitzvah boys, believe me, a lot of them. And I'd say almost without exception, they're like, you know, it is what it is. It's just how it is right now. Okay. So acceptance is a very, very large part of resilience. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to use that word quite a bit, but really what we're all kind of trying to gain out of this, and more than anything, maybe what I want to write is a second thing, is actually some sort of gain. Okay. If we can look at this experience not as, did you notice how I wrote loss a lot of times here? Okay. Loss of focus, loss of routine, loss of freedom, right? Loss of independence. We feel like there's a lot of loss going on in our lives right now. And we as adults, we feel it too. There's a lot of loss. We can't hang out with the people that we want to hang out with. We can't do the things that we want to do. We maybe had a trip planned, we maybe had, some business, maybe there's loss of earnings, maybe there's a lot of loss.
Can we
And
add,
the
sorry, can we
yeah.
add, I mean, people have lost parents,
Of course,
grandparents.
of course. That's obviously, okay,
Yeah.
that's a loss. Clearly, obviously, that's like the main loss. There's a
But
lot of
actually,
loss.
nobody mentioned it. Anyway, go on.
Right. Okay. But you know what? Again, there's so many different areas that we can touch on. But of course, there's a lot of loss, right? And always the way to address that is to kind of try to gain something. Okay, to gain something that you would not have gained if this had not happened. Okay, so and people are telling me quite a bit that in the first lockdown, they felt they had gained a sense of closeness with their family, right? Their teenagers were suddenly home, willing to play games with their 7-year-olds, which happened in my house. I had a son that came back from yeshiva after quite a few years, didn't really pay much attention at all to my 11-year-old for the months that he was here, until suddenly in March she became a person that he was interested in, because she was a person. she was society. And people felt they had gained some sort of family closeness. So obviously some people felt they had lost something in that. We're not talking about loss right now, we're talking about the gain. And really what you want to be helping your child with, okay, is to develop some sense of gain in all of this experience. So sometimes that will look like a project or a goal or even just something that maybe playing an instrument, learning how to play something, learning how to do something that is actually they feel like, okay, what was that period? So that period was obviously a lot of loss, but there was some sense of gain in it. Okay. And that is another part of it. Okay. What people didn't describe here actually is loss of motivation. Okay. That is a big one. Okay. Sorry, I said okay too many times, but that is a very big thing that seems to be going on, is that kids are extremely demotivated, right? They had exams, they don't have exams. They did this, they don't have that. They're not going to school on Zoom is just demotivating. So we want to motivate them in some way. And the only way to motivate someone is if there's a goal, if there's something that we're going to gain. That is motivating. So, and a lot of people have actually also said to me that they thought that their children were depressed. That is a big thing. And actually, some of the teenagers said to me, I feel depressed. And they're not actually depressed, they're demotivated, which looks slightly different. Okay. And I'm happy to share that with you a little bit, because maybe that's an important thing to distinguish. Depression, really, or true depression, what we're really actually worried about is when it's kind of on the individual, right? Where they say, I feel hopeless, I feel helpless, I feel worthless, I feel like I can't do anything. I'm not able to get myself out of bed. I don't feel that I have anything to look forward to. Whereas demotivated is kind of on the situation often. There's nothing to look forward to. There's nothing going on here. There's nothing happening in my life, right? School is such a bore. I can't stand it, right? There's nothing happening. What's the point of getting out of bed? Because there's nothing to do, right? Do you hear the difference in that language? That's quite a distinct difference, and it's important to notice the difference, right? So a child will be like, I just can't get back. I can't get to bed. That's the most them could do is just sleep. It means there's nothing to get out of bed for. Okay, so we want to try to motivate them. We want to have something that they'll be interested in, that there's something exciting or something different and interesting that they might not have had an opportunity to do, and have an opportunity to do. I wouldn't make it massive. Again, you might be very creative. In our house, it's small things that we do generally. So some of it is physical activity, certain gains, certain goals that they're trying to get to, be able to run 5K in a certain amount. Some of it is, and again, physical activity creates endorphins, which then makes everybody feel a little bit better. There is some sort of, one child is learning to play the guitar because he just never did. There's certain goals and certain gains. And one child is actually studying for something completely, off the books. We're trying. I'm not saying we're perfect at it at all, and don't in any way think that we are. We're not. But we noticed that in the beginning that we needed to gain something out of this, that we look back at it and we say there was some sort of gain. And the other gain that I will say, which is extremely helpful and useful, is a gain of emotional intelligence. Okay. Now, this is something where we all have an incredible opportunity here. Okay. Maybe not, but let's try. Okay. That's why we're here tonight. So, how do children learn about their emotions? Now, most teenagers grunt, right? They're not very expressive. How are you doing? Fine. What's up today? Nothing. What have you done? Nothing. What are you going to do? Nothing. It's all fine. I don't care, right? Nothing. They're not particularly expressive, and they're not particularly emotionally astute and in touch with their own emotions. Now, how do children and how do adolescents and how do people who are growing up learn about their own emotions? Through 3 ways, okay? So the first way they learn about their emotions is through you, okay? Through watching you. Clearly, children, that's how children learn about themselves. They learn about their own value and their own worth through you, right? And they learn also about the way that the world works through you, okay? So if they see that you deal with a difficult time in a certain way, then that's what they perceive, the right way to deal with it is, or the way that ends up being the way that they would deal with it. They learn about emotions through their parents. The next way they learn about emotions is how you deal with their having difficult emotions. Okay, so the first way is how you deal with you having difficult emotions. The next way is how you deal with them having difficult emotions, because them having difficult emotions is often very hard for parents, right? We don't like it that our kids are demotivated. We don't like it that our kids have a lot of anxiety or are experiencing self-harm. Obviously, we don't like it. That's very painful for us. And the question, for when they're younger, certainly it's extremely powerful. But even when they're teenagers, do not underestimate the power that parents have when it comes to understanding in terms of their teenagers. Okay, most adolescents will say to me, when they're talking about their relationship with their parents, if it's good, then they'll talk about the fact that they feel understood. If it's bad, then they talk about the fact that they feel misunderstood. It's a very interesting dynamic, and it's, I would say, almost 100% across the board. And I listen to them, and when they talk about their experience, they talk about either they are misunderstood or they are not misunderstood. And what does that mean? It means, how do my parents deal with me having difficult emotions? Okay. When I have a difficult emotion, like I'm angry, like I'm fearful, like I'm anxious, like I'm annoyed, I'm throwing things about the house, I'm sad, how do my parents deal with that? So when they talk about the fact that I'm misunderstood, then my parents get angry with me for being angry. They get angry with me sometimes for being fearful. They get or dismissive of me when I'm fearful, or fearful when I'm fearful. They respond in a way that is not the way that adolescents would consider to be helpful. And when parents are very helpful, it's not when, and this is the thing, it's not when they are, overly nice or sweet. It's actually when parents are able to maintain their own sense of calm or their own sense of themselves and their own emotional equilibrium when a child is going through something difficult. The last thing that children need when they're going through something difficult is for us to react, right, in a reactive way, right, as opposed to responding, right? So as responding and reacting, really about 30 seconds. That's really, that's kind of the difference, right? When our children are annoyed or throw something or whatever, and we immediately react, then they get annoyed about that. They're like, oh, you don't understand me, you don't get me, you get all right. When we respond to them, it's usually because we waited. Okay, we waited about 30 seconds. Okay, we waited. We thought, okay, this child is going through something. He's having a hard time. I'm not enjoying the way he's displaying it, but he's having a hard time. Okay, and I can kind of wait. And then usually I'm able to actually respond and say, can I help? Okay, let's not throw things, but I'm here for you. And I understand it seems like you're having a really tough time. Can you talk to me about it? Okay, and that's the third thing. The third thing is about being willing to, the way that parents teach children about emotional intelligence, is that parents are willing to have difficult discussions with their children, okay, and especially with their adolescents. So difficult discussions can be about, I feel like I want to cut myself. I feel like I want to hurt myself. I feel like I want to, not eat because I'm ugly. And, you gave me those genes and you're ugly, so I'm ugly, or whatever it is, right? I'm not comfortable with who I am. Can you be comfortable with who I am, despite the fact that I'm not comfortable with who I am? And if we can have real discussions with our children and just kind of maintain, again, our acceptance of the fact that they're going through a hard time, and they're going to go through a hard time. They've had the wool pulled out from under their feet. They're confused. This is not what they dreamt of. This is not what they thought they were going to have. This is nothing compared to what they've had dreams. They had expectations. They have older siblings who are talking about how great it was, right? Or they have other people in their life who bigged up these expectations, and now they're not getting it, and they probably won't get it, right? The kids who didn't go to Israel on tour, they're not going to Israel on tour this year. Maybe they're not going as well. Okay, those are difficult things. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're upset. They don't even know why they're angry, they're frustrated, they're upset. Question is, can we have a discussion with them where we can accept their feelings and we can be comfortable with our own feelings in the process? And the only way to do that is kind of that analogy of, pulling the mask down over your face before. I know we haven't been on airplanes in a long time, but I'm sure you all remember that parable, right? That thing where they say, pull the mask over your face before you help a child. And guess what? We have to do that always, right? In every part of life. I remember hearing that when I was a young mother, and I remember hearing this story, and it was such a crazy story to me. It made no sense whatsoever until I got to be an older mother, and then I understood it very well. And it was a story about, a starving family. I don't remember, I don't know where it was, but a starving family, and the mother found one egg. She found one egg, and there were 4 children who were starving, and this one mother, and she had one egg. And she went into her room and she ate the egg. She closed the door and she ate the egg, right? And some of us would be thinking, what? Like, you want to divide that up? Obviously, give it to your children. Why would you take it? That's not how mothers behave. We're selfless. We're not selfish. We don't do that. And the children knocked on the door and they said, Ima, mommy, what are you doing? And she said, I'm making you a mother. That's what I'm doing, right? And I remember hearing that story and thinking, that's horrible. But as I got older, I came to understand that that's actually very beautiful. I mean, it's not a beautiful situation, but it was a beautiful message. And that is that a mother can't help children unless she herself, or a father can't help children unless he himself is feeling somewhat okay. Okay, so the first thing, obviously, in order to help the children, and that's something I should have even put in the first instance, is that we need to help ourselves before we can help our children. Okay, which sounds very cliched, but it's as an expert in this field, I will 100% say it is categorically necessary. You must take time for yourself. We must have time, again, like this, where we kind of get together and we share the fact that we're struggling. You must have a support system. You must have somewhere to turn to and to talk to, so that you can feel you've gotten all the rage and anger and frustration and annoyance and disappointment and loss and all those things out of your head, so that, or at least out of the top layer, so that when your child is experiencing difficulty, you might be able to be available for him or for her. Because the more that we can talk about these things and get comfortable with having difficult conversations, i.e., I'm okay with the fact that you're not feeling very well. I'm okay with the fact that you're not happy. I'm okay with the fact that you're angry. It's okay. I'm listening. I'm not discrediting it. I'm not invalidating it. I'm not saying, oh, don't be ridiculous. I'm listening and I'm saying, I know, I understand. I hear that. It sounds really awful, really horrible, really difficult. I'm sorry that you're going through that. If I had a magic wand, the first thing I would do was make this better. Really. Maybe I might help grandma, but the second thing I would do is really to make this better for you. That's all that children need. They don't need you to solve their issues. They just need you to understand them. Okay. And again, not a single one of my clients or anybody that I've ever seen has ever said to me, oh, my parents, yeah, a really good relationship with them. They solve all my problems for me. Not one, not never. Because that's not what they need. They need a listening ear and they need someone who gets them. Okay. Now, a listening ear is a really important one as well. How to have a conversation with somebody who's having a difficult time. Right now, often we want to turn away. We want to poo-poo it. We want to say, oh, we've spoken about this already. I know, you told me this already, right? Or something. We want to kind of protect ourselves in some way, which is why we need to do that work on an ongoing basis, right? Because we always have to be prepared for the fact that we may have a difficult conversation, especially nowadays. And when we can really listen to them, and listening means, somebody described listening to me once very, very well. And he said, listening means listening with nothing on your mind. Okay. When parents often they listen to wait. So, okay. Or anybody does this to each other, right? I'll wait till you finish so that I then have something. So then I can then have my turn to say what I want to say. Okay. Everybody can smell that. If I would do that in my practice, right? Right. Everybody would be like, well, I don't really have any interest in this because I know she has something to say. And again, everybody can see it. You can see it in every bit of your body language. Okay. And even if they can't see it, they feel it, they sense it. So when you have something that you want to say and you let them finish because that's a polite thing to do, and okay, fine, I'll let you finish, but then I want to say something, everybody feels unheard, right? Not heard. But opposite, they feel so heard if you have nothing that you need to say at this point. And again, and you listen, you wait, you think, and you reply, right? Nobody's like, Mom, you know what? I say, you know what? I'm digesting that. I really heard what you said. It sounds hard. I really heard what you said. I'm thinking about it, wondering about it. Can I ask you another question about it? Right? So I understand better. The more that you try to understand who they are and what they're experiencing, the more they can deal with this whole list. Okay, because they're going to have to deal with it. We can't take it away from them. We can moan about it. That helps too. We can all moan about it together. Who has the worst thing going on? What was the worst thing that happened to you today? Right. But we can't. I wish we could, but we can't. We can't take it away. We can get our vaccine. Right? I have a big sticker on my thing that says I've been vaccinated. Not that that's the topic of this conversation, but that's the best. That's the only thing we can do. Right. And some people feel that's the right thing to do. Some people it's the wrong thing to do. But we really have very little on our hands that we can do. But what we can do is teach them a little bit about how adults, because that's what they're training to be, how adults deal with emotionally difficult experiences. Okay. And the way that adults deal with emotionally difficult experiences is through acceptance. I change what I can and I don't what I can't, and it's okay. Okay, it's okay. And through trying to actually, turn this into something that I can gain out of, as opposed to something that I'm just focusing on the loss, which is not something that we say when a child is angry or frustrated or annoyed. Okay, just a tip. Don't say to a child, right? And again, like you wouldn't want to be that. If you felt really angry or frustrated about something in your life, you would not want your other half to be saying, yeah, but let's look at the bright side of it. Let's talk about what's going on. What could be, because they're like, you don't get me. You don't understand, and you're not willing to stay with me in my pain. The hardest thing at the moment about COVID to me, and I work in a hospital, I work as a psychologist in a hospital, but occasionally I do a bit of volunteering because they beg, an hour or two of being in the ICU to, totally masked up, totally everything, to phone people's families, to fill them in on what's going on. Okay, because their families can't be in the ICU. It's heartbreaking. It's difficult. It's not for the faint of heart. Gotta be honest. But the hardest thing about it is that people are going through such difficulty in the ICU, and they don't have somebody to hold their hands, right? And the nurses are trying. Believe me, they're trying their utmost. Even the doctors are trying to hold people's hands, which is not usually what doctors do. They're trying desperately to be there for people, but they can't. There's too many people. There's too much going on. It's the most painful, difficult thing that somebody's going through a hard time without somebody being able to hold their hand. It's really the most difficult thing of all of this. And what we can do for our teenagers, we don't have to actually physically hold their hand unless somehow that seems to make sense to you. But we can hold their hands emotionally, and we can teach them, we can model for them about how that looks. That somebody's going through a really tough time, and we're just there for them. We're just there for them. We don't have to fix things for them. We don't have to make things better. We don't have to save them. Our teenagers do not need saving. They just need a lot of love and a lot of understanding. Okay. And they also need some trust as well. That's another interesting point. Probably a much bigger conversation. But there, and also some belief. Okay. That's a big part of it, actually. A lot of belief in them that they can do this despite this crazy list of nuttiness that our teenagers are experiencing. And it's not exhaustive, that's for sure. They need us to believe in them that they can be okay, that this is going to be okay, that they're going to get through this. And not only are they going to get through this, but that we're going to be proud of each other from the way that we kind of got through this. We weren't perfect. We didn't not make any mistakes, but we're trying. We're trying. We're trying. And we're going to be proud of each other. And we want to kind of keep talking about that. I know we're going to be okay. I know this is going to be okay. We're going to get through this, and we're going to look back at this. I'm going to be like, well, that was, as they say in Annie, yesterday was plain awful. I won't sing it because you don't want me to sing it, but yesterday was plain awful. But that's not now. That was then. Okay. So at some point, we'll be able to look back and say, that was a difficult time, and we managed it. We did it. Yeah, yes. Okay. So children need us to believe in them. They don't need us to see them as their losses. They need us to understand their losses, but they don't need us to see them in that light. Really, the truth is that one of my things in my research is really finding and understanding, and kind of one of the focuses of my research is that teenagers do best when people believe in them, right? Or when people see them for their strengths and don't pander to their weaknesses. Okay, so what I mean by that is that when a child who's been cyberbullied or had very negative online experiences, just to get into my research, right? But when they've had a really difficult time, okay, and they've suffered. So the interesting thing is what they tell me, okay, because I'm interviewing them, what they say is they don't want to be pitied, they don't want to be babied, they don't want to be treated as a victim. They want to be treated as a survivor, right? As somebody who managed, who will manage, who will come out of this stronger than they were before. That's ultimately extremely helpful, to focus on their strengths, not to, magnify their weaknesses, because other people have been trying to magnify their weaknesses and they've been battling that. And the best thing that they can get from their parents or anybody who's helping them is, I believe in you. I'm not saying this isn't hard, but I believe in you that you're actually going to come out of this possibly even better off than you would have been before. Is that possible? Might be possible. Let's see. Be interesting to find out, right? something to look out for, something to see, because we'll learn more about ourselves, right? And that's what we talk about, that gain. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anyone have any questions on what I've said, or have I not? I haven't addressed screens yet, but I can do. Is there anything anybody wants to say on what I've just said? No, I can't actually see all of you at the same time, so I can't actually see anybody and anybody's thing. Does everyone agree with me? That's a funny question to ask, right? No, I can't hear your things.
I can see some nodding heads if that helps.
Okay, okay, that's good. Such a funny thing to read like on the screen.
People aren't in front of you properly, it's difficult.
Okay, it is funny. Okay. So, again, that's just my experience of what teenagers need. So they need acceptance, they need a sense of gain, a sense of strength, they need understanding. Okay, so when I come to emotional intelligence, what I really mean by that is they need a sense that they're understood, and that parents can handle their difficulties, okay, can handle their pain. Now, when it comes to, let's talk a little bit about anxiety. Why not? Okay. So anxiety is something that is growing a lot. Okay. And why? And there are a lot of different theories as to why anxiety is. And I don't mean during COVID. That kind of makes sense during COVID. But in general, anxiety really is all about a person perceiving something that may not seem threatening to other people as threatening. Okay, so they see too many things in the world. What's getting in the way of their functioning is that they see too much threat. Okay, they see things that may not be that threatening as threatening. Okay, so why is that happening more? So there is one theory that I think makes a lot of sense, and that is kind of what I was just talking about just now, which is that we parents who love our children so much, and certainly over the last, 20 years, the world and society has definitely taken toward protecting children a lot, which is not a bad thing, right? I'm protecting society a lot, which generally you wouldn't say that there's a bad thing, but there's always going to be interesting side effects, even of things that are good. And one of the interesting side effects, because we say in Hebrew, we talk about character traits as being something we call it a midah, which is really a measurement, which is a really good word for it. Because a character trait is all on, if you see my arm, right? It's all like a seesaw, right? That's what a character trait is. So if you say like, well, I'm really kind, okay? So you don't want to be not kind at all, right? As a character trait, but you also don't want to be too kind, because then you're a people pleaser and then people step all over you, and that doesn't look particularly healthy, right? You want to kind of have a measure of it, right? Be in the middle, be the fulcrum, right? Be the thing that's in the middle of the seesaw that things are, riding on. That's kind of where you want to sort of aim at in terms of generally how you achieve health, right? Is that balance? So in terms of, protection, if we underprotect our kids, then they really get pretty badly hurt, right? Abused and all kinds of things. And we miss abuse, and right, so we need to protect our children. If we overprotect our children, though, okay, and see them as if we overprotect our children, we teach them that they are not capable, or that they're too weak. They're not strong enough to handle the world. Okay, and really implicitly, what we teach them is that the world is actually a very scary place, a dangerous place. You mustn't go out because you mustn't go out with this, or you mustn't go out that, you mustn't do this, climb on this kind of thing, or that height, or this height, right? Health and safety, again, it's not a bad thing, health and safety, but the opposite side of it, right, is that our children have a sense that the world is a dangerous place, and more than that they can't handle it. They're not up to the task. They can't do it. Okay, so one of the things that we can kind of use to sort of address that is a lot of discussion and a lot of conversation about how much we believe in them, and really kind of allowing them to do things that they may get into trouble for, or they may, or try things out, or they may get hurt while doing it. And again, I'm not talking about, running out into the road or playing with fire or anything ridiculous. But the interesting thing about anxiety is that really the way that we treat anxiety is by helping people understand that they're stronger than they think, and that trying to take risks, right? That risk taking is one of the ways that we kind of address anxiety, right? You take a little bit of a risk. That actually went better than what I thought. I'm trying to do something fascinating. And my husband's an A&E doctor, so we're all COVID, right? We call him the COVID Rebbe because everybody in the whole world calls him about, especially the first few months. He's like, I don't know anything about this disease. Like, I only know what you know. I really, like, nobody knows anything about this disease. But should I do this? Shouldn't I do that? And my daughter hears him on the phone all the time talking about risk versus benefit. Okay, what is the risk versus the benefit? I can't tell you exactly what to do. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, right? Again, I'm not talking about the guidelines. I'm talking about this or that or whatever, different times. And she said to me, my 11-year-old turned to me about a month ago, actually, me and my husband, and she said, is everything in the world about risk versus benefit? Is that what everything is, right? Like, and we looked at each other, we said, that is pretty much everything in the world, right? If you make a friend, it's a risk versus a benefit, right? If you eat chocolate cake, right, there's a risk versus a benefit, right? If you raise your hand in class, right, it's a risk versus a benefit. What is it? You're constantly weighing up that balance in life of, I'm going to risk it. Is it too much of a risk, or is it possibly going to benefit me? Let's try to figure this out. So when children have anxiety and when teenagers have anxiety, it is important to a little bit encourage them to take risks. Okay, and I don't mean risks with COVID restrictions. I'm never going to say that. Don't break COVID restrictions. But again, other types of risk. Okay, like maybe calling somebody that they wouldn't have necessarily called, reaching out to someone that they wouldn't do, trying to do something that they may not have done before, and talking a lot about their strength, because you may have inadvertently, not through any fault of your own and not through any trying, but as a society, we have all, and as parents, we may have inadvertently taught our children that we don't think that they're strong enough and that we're worried that they can't handle the world. So the more that they see you taking risks, and again, I don't mean risks for their health, that's not what I'm talking about, but risks, right? Reach out to somebody, do something that you really didn't think you were able to do, right? Or do something that looks like, well, I may fail, right? That's the risk, right? I may fail. I may not be good at it. I may not be able to do it. I may fall on my face, right? I may, but that's okay. I'll then pick myself up, right? We're adults, so we kind of can maybe see that and do that. But that's a beautiful way to address anxiety rather than, don't self-harm. And in terms of self-harm, I hope this isn't too controversial, but again, as a professional, as a parent, if your child is self-harming, then, you want to seek some help. But as a professional, there's different types of self-harm, okay? And there's certain types of self-harm, by the way, again, so in terms of reacting or responding, try not to react to a child that's self-harming, okay? So they're in pain. The reason why people self-harm is because it kind of dampens or deadens some of the pain. They have a different focus. They have some level of control, right? They're doing something to help themselves. That's why they're self-harming. They're in pain and they're doing something that they feel actually is helpful, is useful. Now, we as parents are like, no, that's not how you help yourself. But to them, it makes sense. And that's what they're doing. So don't react too strongly. They're not going to die, almost definitely, right? Just because they're self-harming. Again, if they are going to die, then you need to get them medical help, obviously. But if they've revealed to you that they're actually just, using scissors and cutting themselves a little bit, try not to overreact. Try not to react. Try to take a little bit of a step and talk about it and say, it seems like you're in pain. Why does that help? How does that help? talk about it, have a difficult conversation about it. Okay. It's never, again, I'm treading on fine line here, but a person who's really in danger is has a plan of how to end their life. Okay. A person who is cutting themselves wants to talk about possibly wants understanding and also wants a bit of help of how to maybe do it differently, right? Of how to help themselves in a different way. Okay, that's when people come to talk to me about when they're self-harming. They want love, they want understanding, and they want understanding that they're not crazy, but they're just trying to help themselves in some way. So don't go completely nuts when somebody reveals that to you, because then you shut that door. Okay, and I'm not saying, but talking, discussion, understanding, right, emotional well-being. And obviously, I think, if you do take that step back, you will be able to see, is my child actually in danger, or are they just trying to relieve a little bit of pain and difficulty? You'll probably be able to gauge that. But you probably can't gauge it when you're reacting and scared and petrified that they're self-harming. Again, self-harm is not fun for anybody who's doing it, but some people enjoy it, but it's relief. That's what it is. It's just a sense of relief, or a sense of I have an option here. I have something to do because I feel like I'm out of other options. Anyway, okay, but if in doubt, obviously seek help. But again, in terms of just a sense of it's not a immediate, oh my God, you're crazy, or whatever it is, or we need to cart you off to a mental hospital. Okay. Or you need to threaten. That's another thing that happens to a lot of my clients, is that the parents seem to threaten them that that they're going to put them in a mental hospital if they are self-harming, which is, the mental hospital is not full of people who are minorly self-harming. Okay. Screens. Should we talk about screens? Yay, my favorite topic. The honest answer is that I think we all have to be really, really kind to ourselves. Okay, I think that's the most important thing that I can give you tonight. Look after yourself. Okay, now most people think that looking after themselves is spending some time on a screen for themselves, okay, which is where often children get it as well. But actually, I'm not saying you can never be on a screen, but actually looking after yourself is usually the opposite. It's usually somehow being active, doing something for yourself, accomplishing, doing something. But be kind to yourself, okay? Which means that if you feel like some of your rules have gone out the window, then some of your rules have gone out the window, okay? The problem is that the rules were there for a reason, because that actually creates a healthy dynamic around screens. So what I would say is be kind to yourself, but also try to take that step back and say, what would I like to see here? Okay, what would I like to see here? And then have a conversation with your child about it. Don't pass edicts. Okay, for teenagers, they're not good at this because I said so. Okay, that's not the era that we live in. We used to once upon a time, which is now I see the adults that are the result of that kind of generation. But this generation isn't that generation. So don't try to go into it, because you're not going to get anywhere. Okay, so you're not going to say to children or to teenagers, because I said so. You're going to appeal to their, again, look at them as though they're strong and not as though they're weak. Talk to them about what makes sense. What is sensible here? Okay, we're all on this, we're all on that, we'll all get lazy, I get it. I totally get it. We need some downtime. There's nothing else to do. I'm bored. Yeah, I know. I get it. What makes sense in terms of healthy living? And talk to them about it. Have a conversation with that. Well, you're going to tell me I can't be on it. No, I'm engaging you. Okay. And even my 11-year-old, I do that with. Okay. I say, because sometimes she finishes her Zoom and then she does whatever else she does. Right. And even though our computers are pretty blocked, but there's still some things that she can do. And I don't really want her I want her to come off the screen, right, and do other things. We still have a conversation about it. What do you think makes sense? What would make sense to you? You want to be healthy. I want you to be healthy. I want to be healthy. We all want to be kind of healthy because otherwise we feel bleh, right? And then we get into a rut. Let's talk about it. As though you, the teenager, were actually a sentient, sensible human being, because they are. And that's the thing. People send their kids to me and they're like, oh, he's a nightmare and he's this, he's that. But somehow, amazingly, when they sit in front of me, and not because I may wave a magic wand, but because I'm literally at attention for them. I'm theirs. From 45 to 50 minutes, I'm all theirs. Completely listening, totally believing in them, thinking they're great. Okay, because every single person that walks through my door, from my office, I think they're great. No question, because I'm smart enough to understand that everybody is great. And I know them and I understand them and I believe in them. And so they talk. Not always. Sometimes they don't talk, but mainly they're happy to kind of engage. And when I appeal to their more sensible nature, not because, oh, come on, just what's sensible, but I treat them as though I assume that that's the way they're going to be speaking to me. And I'm totally comfortable. And I say it straight out. I'm totally comfortable with anything that you bring in here. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me if you're angry. Doesn't bother me if you hate me. Doesn't bother me if you think I'm annoying. Doesn't bother me if you think I'm stupid. I'm totally comfortable with it. I'm fine. Okay, because I know what that's all about. It's absolutely fine. No problem. And I treat you as though you have something of worth and of value to share with the world. And I try very hard to do that with my own teenagers as well. Sometimes I get angry and I react and I'm frustrated and I've had a hard day and my eyes are swimming and all I can see is everyone on the screen and doing all the things I don't want them to do. And we had that conversation yesterday and I get annoyed. But what I try to do, the difference between reacting, right, and screaming everything and shutting everything down and throwing it all in the garbage is this 30 seconds. I give myself the gift of 30 seconds because I know that after those 30 seconds, probably I'm going to be better equipped to be able to handle whatever comes next. Right? And we always say, this is, one of my mentors said to me, she said, we all give our children these gifts, right? The gift of impatience, the gift of like our families, right? Have these gifts, right? Gift of, of being able to, chuck something out the window without it actually smashing anything, but only smashing the thing behind it or whatever, right? We all have like these family gifts that we give to our children. But we also have positive gifts, right, that we give to our children. And one of the things that I always feel like the gift that I give to my children in my house, beside all the negative gifts, is that I wait 30 seconds. I try very hard to wait 30 seconds before I respond. I just wait. And everybody knows that, right? They know that, they see me, and I wait. Because I know that if I give myself that waiting time, it's going to look a little bit better and I'm going to be available to get them, understand them, be there for them, be available, be the person that I actually, the parenting values that I actually want from myself, right? And that's another thing. Like, it's important to kind of look at what your parenting values are, right? We've been speaking about quite a few parenting values, but maybe those are my parenting values, right? And it's important to kind of look at and say, well, when you're, when they're making you a 70th birthday party, what do you want your kids to be saying about you? when they're toasting you, saying, hey, mom was, this. What do you want them to be saying? And that's why you wait those 30 seconds. Because if you can wait those 30 seconds, then you have an opportunity to access, those parenting values that you actually hold dear. Okay, I'm aware of the time. Anybody have anything that they want to share or suggest?
I'm just going to mention a couple of points in the chat, if that's okay.
Oh, I didn't see the chat. Sorry.
Also make you aware that your battery seems to be on 18%. Sorry.
Thank
I don't
you.
want to lose you just before the end. Okay.
Thank you.
So Jude said, I found the more authentic I am with my own feelings, the easier it is to be authentic with them, which sounds very valid from what you've been saying as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. Beautifully put as well.
Estelle has put brilliant advice. 30 seconds. We'll really try to take that on board. Thank you so much for your time. So that's very nice. Does anybody else want to say anything or contribute? I realize it is getting late now. Just before we go, I can't see any hands up or anybody unmuting. Everybody's thinking about everything you've been saying, I think.
Okay. Well, it's been nice to spend time with you. I wish us all a heap load of luck. Please God, we'll get through it. I believe in all of us. We will get through it. It will be fine. It will be okay. Not without casualties, but okay.
So if we take off the share screen, we can just sort of see people.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just, before we finish, there's a few thank yous coming in very kindly from people. Personally, I just heard very much the message of we're looking after ourselves, obviously, but going on to our teens, of patience, the 30 seconds, love as ever, belief and hope. And I think, I mean, personally, I do feel that hope is something that's got me through a lot of this when dealing with my children. But you bringing it all together and speaking to us this evening has been really had a lot of value. And we really, you are an incredibly busy person, and we're really, really grateful for your time. So thank you so much, Shanni, really.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, thank you, everybody who came on this evening. Thank you.
Be well.
Lots of lovely messages of thanks here in the chat as well.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your messages. Okay, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody.